My name is Dr. Phil McDaniel, and I'm here today with Dr. Doug Corpron. We're here to talk about the Kwai River Christian Hospital. I was the 5th director of the Kwai River Christian Hospital. Dr. Corpron was the very first director. He was the founding doctor of the Kwai River Christian Hospital, and I'm anxious today to find out a little bit about how things were in those very early days. So, Dr. Corpron, or Doug, you arrived at the site of the future Kwai River Christian Hospital in March of 1961, according to the records.
That's right.
But I understand a lot had to happen before you actually arrived there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's fun to be here and to have a conversation with the two of us who were fellow physicians dedicated to the history and the work of the Kwai River Christian Hospital. And to know that and realize this little hospital, which was a clinic when we first started, has lived on now for 60 years. Almost 60 years. And is evolving. And also know that Dr. Phil was an integral part of why that history has lived on, because my history there was for 2 4-year terms, 2 of which were spent in language school. But in terms of the beginnings and the decisions and why we were there, I was recruited by the United Christian Missionary Society to go to Thailand to do this job. I had wanted to go back to China. I'm a China missionary's kid. My dad was in Anhui province for a whole career.
Your dad was a doctor
My
too?
My dad was a physician.
And started a hospital in China.
He's considered by the Anhui Provincial Hospital, a 2,000-bed hospital today, as the founder. And I've been honored by them more than once now as the son of their founder, which has been incredible. But that was my motivation. I went with my wife, and by that time we had 3 kids, and we landed in Bangkok and went to work on the language. But the decision to go and start a new program among the Karen on the Burma border had been done by 2 missions. The United Christian Missionary Society, which is Disciples of Christ, and my mission sending group, and the American Baptist Mission, who have a long and deep history among the Karen in Burma, and were brought in because of that. And there is a man who is prominent in the science and history of missions, who I think is now retired from the Fuller Seminary. His name is Don McGavran.
Right.
Knowledgeable man about the science and the experience and history of missions in Asia. He was, I think, a second generation missionary, had worked in India much of a career. But anyway, he knew about the Karen, who have been very receptive to Christianity in Burma, had a large, well-established 3 generations of Christians with seminaries and thousands of Christians in Burma. And he knew that there were Karen who were refugees from strife in Burma on the Thai side. And they were looking for a place in which that might be a receptive location for a new mission to begin. And a lot of thought started by this man to look at this as an opportunity. There was also the story of a subgroup of Karen, Po-Karen, called
Telecon.
The Telecon, who were located somewhere on the border, they knew. And the Telecon had an absolute ruler, and they had a long tradition of a story of a white man coming and bringing the book of truth, that they had also knew that story, and with intrigue that perhaps that might be a way to reach this unusual group. And that was one of the quiet reasons why they decided to locate. It turned out the telecon were located above a funny little piece of the Thai-Burma border called the Bulge, which bulges into Thailand. And that location was so remote that you had to, John Sams, who we'll talk about in a minute, who was part of the decision-making of where to go, had to walk 2 days to a refugee village. It was still another day or two walk to where the telecom headquarters was, and it was all above the bulge. And there was no other way to get there except from Thailand, except to go through this process and all the multi-day trekking. Mm-hmm. And it was just not feasible to consider that as a location. But John Sams, among others, and I think John, who we had an interesting conversation with 2 nights ago, who's now 96, but who was very aggressively challenged to try to find a location in which these two boards might consider locating a mission. Spent many trips along the Thai-Burma border, and he came up from Kanchanaburi upriver, and he described his approach then as one day by Hangyao boat, which you and I talk about, with a long-tailed Thai-style boat with a long drive shaft and a propeller out on the end. That can go up in shallow water, but they weren't. There weren't enough boatmen that were comfortable going above the one city along the way, Hakanun, Tongpapum. And so John actually hired elephants to go from there up to this area and explore it more than once. And they did make the decision that there is this one spot, which is on the river, that they did determine is going to be navigable during the rainy season, which is usually in the fall. And because of that, they decided that's where they would establish the mission.